Well, welcome to part two, and I'm really excited that we've got this opportunity to talk about perimenopause and particularly how that phase of life, that hormone and many other changes I think that Nadia alluded to last session, how that impacts our mental health. Nadia, what are some of the things, some of the impacts of these hormonal changes and fluctuations?
So, classic signs that someone may be in the perimenopause, there's absolutely those mental health signs like an increase in rage, or there might be an increase in anxiety. That's a really common one. But a lot of the signs can be physical as well. And as psychologists, we can often feel a little bit uncomfortable asking people about physical symptoms. Are we trotting on a medical person's territory in a way? But as scientist practitioners, and certainly as helping people advocate for their own health, I would say it is okay to tread in that part. So, just as you would with PMDD or other mental health conditions that cross over with hormones, asking a woman about her periods. Have they gotten closer together? Are they going further apart? Because these are all your clues to then refer a woman on to her GP and say, hey, have you thought about perimenopause? How about you go and have a chat with your GP? So, some classic signs of very early perimenopause may be things like a woman's periods getting closer together rather than further apart, which intuitively is not what we think if periods are eventually going to stop. Periods being heavier, PMS getting worse. So, there's a whole area of research that's happening, and PMDD is often worse in the perimenopause. So, hormones have such a profound influence on our mental health.
Mm.
So, as practitioners, we should be asking for those kind of key three things that you talked about in the last 7 minute schemas to differentiate between your classic depression and more your perimenopausal depression, and then asking a little bit more about these physical symptoms to try and see if we can uncover aspects of the puzzle that it could be more about this than mental health difficulties in general. And I guess the thing too, Nadia, is encouraging women to advocate and find a general practitioner that perhaps is knowledgeable about perimenopause. Another alarming thing, a statistical thing that I came across in research in this area is that once upon a time women were diagnosed as whiny women, and that we just need to suck it up and get on with it. And I think that women shouldn't have to suffer with these symptoms.
Absolutely. And there is now so much more knowledge, although knowledge is still really in its infancy. So much more knowledge, so much more help out there. Hormonal treatments can work wonders for mood and anxiety during the perimenopause, and finding a medical person, gynecologist, GP, someone to work with who is knowledgeable about the perimenopause, and self-advocating, asking friends, who do you see?
And Nadia, from your experience working as a psychologist in this area, what are some of the key things that we would want clinicians to be doing, working with clients who are perimenopausal? What are some of the key things that you'd like people to know?
Yes. So start with self-advocacy, because it's a hormonal problem. It's not a hormonal imbalance, but it's the effect of hormones, those fluctuating hormones on the brain. So encouraging our clients to self-advocate and to seek appropriate medical intervention, because that's something that we can't do. And, we know that it sounds a bit corny or simplistic, but general self-care is really helpful. We can encourage women to see the perimenopause as it's an invitation in your life. If you've been, working really hard in your career, or raising your children, or looking after ailing parents, or doing all of these other things, it's an invitation to just take stock, slow down for a second. What's working for me? What's not working for me? Looking at things like self-care. We know that mindfulness, relaxation, all of our really standard tools as psychologists can be useful at this time.
But I guess one of the challenges in that might be some schemas, right? Because sometimes we can feel like we've got those unrelenting standards. I've got to get everything done. And yes, when I tick all the boxes, I can definitely do my self-care. So you can have some of those schemas that get in the way, or maybe a self-sacrifice or subjugation schema that's like, oh, I find it very hard to advocate for myself. I really would prefer, I'll leave the doctor, they know what they're doing. There can be some sort of patterns that we might have developed over the years and our now family of origin that can even make it hard to be that advocate or to take that time that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And one of the other schemas that I was really thinking about might be emotional deprivation, that if a woman has been to the doctor 3 times and nothing's resolved and feeling quite alone and no one else gets it, and that could really trigger that schema to come to the fore.
And what about for women themselves? If you're trying to get some knowledge out there and some, encouragement for their healthy adult, are there some things you would want to say to someone who really doesn't feel like themselves and kind of doesn't even recognize what's happening and what to do about it? Is there anything you'd want to say to somebody listening in that situation?
Absolutely. So self-educate as much as you can. There are great books. There is a wonderful podcast by Louise Newson, who's a UK-based GP who has devoted her whole life to treating women in this phase of life. So get out there, learn, self-advocate.
Well, thank you so much, Nadia, for that 7 minutes. We really appreciate your expertise and wisdom. And we have got some links at the end of the video here if you want to find out more about Nadia's work and some other resources that she would encourage you to have a look at.